All right, y'all. So this should be the last one for part 28 of the JFK Files. This is video 9 because this one had so many pages. And then the other one, I couldn't really read it, so I'll put it in the description section. And then you can go back and try to read it and make heads or tails of it. I'm not going to even bother with it. But I mean, I think we got enough information. It's pretty much like the same type of memo. But anyway, let's get going here. So, H, exploitation of exile groups. We will continue the clandestine exploitation of exile groups for intelligence collection, psychological warfare, and other approved missions. As feasible, we will act to mount as much of this effort as possible from areas outside the continental United States, and particularly from Latin America. If higher authority decides on a track two concept or on any similar concept which contemplates heavy, uncontrolled, and only generally directed action operations of Cuban groups against Cuba, it is believed that efforts would be made to transfer as much as possible of the responsibility for this non clandestine, non intelligence type operation into the political field, which is the province of the Department of State. In this connection, yes, it is believed it would be advisable to press for the creation within the Department of State of an Office of Cuban Exiles Affairs to handle the overt government relationships with Cuban exile groups, organizational and procedural changes, maximum implementation of the above plan, which provides for the most extensive feasible collection of intelligence, the implementation of related programs as outlined, and the maintenance of capabilities to exploit targets of opportunity, as well as take advantage of any future substantial changes in internal Cuban conditions will, it is believed, permit and make advisable the following. A gradual but substantial reduction in the expenditures and personnel of Task Force W. B, consideration of the repositioning of Task Force W within the clandestine service, possibly as a major component of the WH division under different direction. C, the abolition of the operational mongoose mechanism. D, the removal of the past framework, which required detailed consideration by the special group, augmented of even minor operational details and decision by committee on points which is believed are completely within the purview of the DCI and those officers to whom he delegates decision. V or five, I guess, recommended action. A, your concurrence in the above general operational plan is recommended. B, it is recommended that you discuss this plan with the special group, augment it, and secure its concurrence. C, it is recommended that you secure from the special group augmented policy approval to attempt to reduce our Pan American Airways and KLM to resume their flights between Miami and Havana at the appropriate time. It is recommended that if any track two concept is proposed, you endeavor to transfer the Department of State all possible overt aspects of this type of uncontrolled subsidy and support of Cuban exile groups. E, it is recommended that the mongoose operational mechanism is abolished, and that F, if you concur in this concept, specific recommendations will be made to you concerning the repositioning of Task Force W within the DDP. William K. Harvey, Chief, Task Force W. All right, operational plan of Cuba, drafting 23rd of November 1962. So I guess I or one situation. The purpose of this plan is to outline the actions to be undertaken by the Central Intelligence Agency against the Castro Communist government of Cuba during, I don't know what that says, something 63, and for such longer period as may be directed. For the purpose of this plan, the following assumptions are made. National objectives with repeats to Cuba, essential as follows: isolate Castro communism from other Western Hemisphere nations, further discredit the Castro communist regime in Cuba and in the hemisphere, maintain moderate, I don't know what this says, economic and political pressure on the Castro communist regime to retard development of the Cuban economy and maintain a drain on block resources. D, maintain maximum coverage of Cuban intelligence requirements. E, be prepared to capitalize on any significant uprising, a split in Cuban something, or split on Cuban bloc relationships. So the mission covertly support the above cited U.S. national objectives with respect to Cuba. And then task is A, intelligence or counterintelligence. Provide the maximum intelligence coverage of Cuba with particular emphasis on the following: capabilities and intentions of the Castro government, activities of Cuban G2, Soviet activities in Cuba, state of resistance, including the tone and temper of the population, military and militia order of E, military and militia order of battle. F, locus of power and or stress and strain the power centers in the Cuban government, Soviet, Cuban, and Chinese Cuban relationships, economic. B, political, assist and support state in any feasible action to develop active OAS and Latin American country support for the containment and overthrow of Castro. Two, assist state in the development of pro-Castro concepts, leaders, and political groups. Provide covert support to the CRC and to such other Cuban political groups as appropriate. And then four, develop contacts in the power centers of the Cuban government as a possible means of splitting the regime. Man, this is hard to read. Okay, economic, participate in interagency economic action, something planning and execution, prevent essential material and supplies from reaching Cuba, harass free world trade with Cuba, psychological, develop, maintain, and exploit the will of the Cuban people to resist Castro and communism, discredit the Castro regime in Cuba, in the hemisphere and elsewhere. It seems like this is a recurring thing. Develop and exploit tensions between Cuba and Soviet bloc members, and then resistance. Be prepared to covertly provide limited personnel, support something insignificant internal resistance group or uprising, and be prepared to support approved U.S. military plans against Cuba. And then implementation. To undertake the above listed tasks, CIA would be required to develop the following programs: A, intelligence and counterintelligence. The past buildup of intelligence assets must be intensified and expanded. The following types of actions will be maximized: spotting, recruiting, training of legally established Cubans in Cuba, establishment and maintenance of reliable assets, maybe. Communications will become more critical as police state control increases. Spotting, recruiting, training Cuban in governments posts, and spotting, recruiting, training of third country nationals or resident in Cuba. Spotting, recruiting, training of legal travelers who have potential access to significant information or who can provide significant potential or operational support. Expansion of communist communication, intelligence, particularly in the G2 police and militia nets. This is primarily an NSA problem. Maintain refugee debriefing programs, maximize utilization of liaison services for above program, and then psychological warfare. Um, the program must primarily concentrate on and reach the Cuban population. The following psychological warfare activities are considered essential. One is a propaganda balloon launching capability and appropriate policy authority to conduct propaganda balloon launching operations. Continue and expand the present propaganda operations, infiltrating material into Cuba via the open mails, I guess, legal travelers, and couriers. So this is kind of, I think this is just repeating the same thing. That is pretty much the same. So I'll put these in the description, and then that's it for part 28. We're done with these long documents. Anyway, I will talk to y'all later. See y'all. Bye.